Hey, what's going on, guys? It is Deibs, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. Party on Broad can be found on iTunes and Spotify. Smash that subscribe button, guys, if you're watching us here on the Painted Lines YouTube channel. Today, we're going to react and give our first impressions of the Sixers and the Phillies. We're going to react. Sports is back, and let's talk about it. Joining me today is my man, Rob. Follow him on Twitter at Philly_Madness. What's going on, Rob?
Man, I tell you what, July might be the busiest month of the year for this guy, man. It's been birthday palooza over at the house, finally come to an end. I'm glad about that. But I put this on Twitter. Today is the day, fellas. Now that sports are back, you get to really see who I am. Like, we've had all these nice, fun conversations without sports. You're going to be either love me or hate me by the end of this once you see how I get when it comes to discussing these teams in this city and how easily I get frustrated with them. So I am excited to be here, and I am excited sports are back for however long it is.
Awesome. Also joining us today is my man, our co-host. He is JR. Follow him on Twitter at JohnRussell215. What up, JR?
Feels like we're back home, boys. You get the laptop out, you put a baseball game on there, you got a baseball game on your TV. I got one on my phone. I'm watching 3 different pitchers pitch at once. It feels so good. It's calming.
All right, but first up, we also have my man JB. Follow him on Twitter at JBlevinsNBA. And something really interesting is happening with the Painted Lines. The Painted Lines has joined a Madden PlayStation 4 simulation league. JB is, kind of patrolling that. Tell us a little bit about that, man.
It's endlessly painful, and yet I can't stop. So, actually, just hopped off of that live broadcast, I hate that I'm completely incapable of actually playing Madden. But we spent, I think this is our 4th season in. We invested in youth. And then about a week ago, we got the word that this would be the final season. Okay. So that changes everything. So that literally changes like everything, right? Investing in lines and investing in young guys and development, buying low, selling high, like forget all that. So on Saturday, I literally spent 12 hours completely just star hunting and building 2011's dream team. And so far, very similar results.
All right.
Very similar results to that dream team. Yeah. Got a ton of stars, and we're 0-2.
There we go. Great.
So.
Love it. All right.
Hey, listen. I'm going to be streaming those games. And the thing I'm going to offer is, if you want my take on anything that will not personally attack an individual, I will give you my take on virtually anything. So if it's not illegal, if the statute of limitations is up, and it's not personally attacking a person, unless it's Tony Bruno, I will tell you anything on those as I slowly watch my hours of investment go to waste.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's get into this. Let's talk about, what was it like to have sports back? For me, I thought it was just simply incredible. For one, like, our family was supposed to go down to our beach house down in Rehoboth Beach. So with everything being shut down, we had canceled the trip. And sure enough, we had the Sixers and the Phillies on Friday. So, man, it was amazing. I don't know about you guys, but I put some tenderloins in the smoker. I kind of just paced like it was almost like an NFL season opener. I just I couldn't stop pacing. I cleaned up the entire house. It was honestly like August. It felt like an NFL season opener. It was just a beautiful day. And it was so amazing to wake up Friday morning, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, and look at your phone and be like, oh, look at all those box scores, man. That was a beautiful thing. What about you, Rob? What was your quick take that sports is back?
Yeah, Friday was exciting. I was, home with the kids. The wife was working. But, I had little Luca, who just turned a year in his Ben Simmons jersey. I wore my Ben Simmons jersey all day. So we watched that whole game. And then basically as soon as the Sixers ended, I took the Ben Simmons jersey off, went to my Bryce Harper jersey, and was just pumped. And I was pumped to watch sports. I only made it through about 5.5, 6 innings of the Phillies game before I became just absolutely annoyed and exhausted. I will say that there was multiple things working against me, but just to have things to watch again and to be invested, and watching Twitter, watching everybody get back on Twitter and talk about these things, it was a lot of fun. So I'm glad it's back. I hope we can keep it back safely, is the thing.
Amen. All right. Also joining us today is my man, Austin. You know him on Twitter at CPL, the host of the Feed to MB podcast. All right, JR, what was your take on sports being back, man?
It was awesome, but it kind of got scary, though, in the last couple of days, didn't it? Like, they gave it to us, and they almost took it away. So it's like, God, should I really be all invested right now? Because they might just pull the blanket out from underneath of us again. But let's be thankful we just have a little escape from reality. We can just watch box scores of meaningless NBA games for the time being, and games number 1 and 2 of 60 for the MLB season. I can hear all you guys go upset about the Phillies after 4 at-bats. It's really great.
We're going to get into it, man. We're going to get heavily into that. What about you, JB? Are you back to the grind? Like, what was your reaction?
About basketball?
Yeah, basketball, baseball.
Yeah, so I actually really like the Zoom availabilities. The games. I'm looking at these games and I'm like, okay, this is like high level preseason level basketball. But the games are not. I don't find them to be all that entertaining right now. I'm not learning a lot from the games.
Okay.
So we'll get into the obvious, 2 things that happened in the first game. That were huge from either corner, what that means long term. But when the Phillies, I've watched more Phillies so far this year than I did all of last season. Because I'm fundamentally, we'll get into that. I hope we get into that.
Oh, we're going to get into
fundamentally opposed to their entire organizational approach. And I think people take my statements as, again, attacking individual players. It's really not. So I love baseball as a sport. I don't think of it as I've just been too disconnected, I think, from the Major League Baseball entertainment product to care about the name on anybody's jersey. I just don't care about any of them enough. I'm watching Aaron Nola's late action, late movement on his pitches. That's the stuff I just enjoy as a fan of baseball.
What about you, Austin? Any quick takes on just in general sports, baseball, basketball being finally back?
Austin, why don't you just grow up and unblock Dan?
Here we go.
Just grow up, Austin.
I will not be unblocking people who are toxic to me. That's not going to happen anytime
That's
soon.
not how an aspiring journalist, an aspiring outlet makes it big, Austin.
No, definitely not. Apparently no mistakes can be made, I guess. But
You know what the easiest thing in the world is? To be a second guesser. You know what the hardest thing in the world to be is? A first guesser.
There we go.
The world is full of second guessers.
I think I got text from you 3 times now.
What's that?
I think I've received that text from you about 3 times now.
Yeah.
No, by now.
I believe it.
All right, guys. Let's get into the weekend of Philadelphia sports, and we got to start off Sixers versus Memphis. Where let's talk about the top takeaways. They took the W 90-83. I'll lead us off. Just pure and utter dominance from the Sixers starting lineup, especially from Ben Simmons. Watching the Sixers play almost like a borderline summer league game, man, for the first time in months was one thing. However, watching a basketball game where my man Ben Simmons and Norvell freaking Pell hit a freaking three-pointer in the same game, man. I don't know about you guys. You guys clearly know that I am one of Norvell Pell's biggest fans, and that was something I will absolutely never forget. But for real, the top takeaway for me was the Sixers defense. That defense was suffocating. and just so incredibly important moving forward. 9 steals, 6 blocks, forced 19 Memphis turnovers. The game means nothing, but that's something that really is important to carry over as they play 8 regular season games. And when the Sixers are playing at that level, you have to feel good for Brett Brown. Have to. What about you, Rob? What was a main takeaway?
Hold on. Let me just say, Chris, why were you surprised at the chase down, turnaround, corner 3 off the dribble from Norvell Pell? How many times have you watched him do that at the field house in Delaware?
Yeah, man.
Why are you surprised?
Right. They just work on that. On a routine.
I mean, you see it like, come on.
Love it,
How
man.
many
That
times
was,
have you seen that?
They saw Amir Johnson down there last season. And they said, Norvell, this is what we want you to be.
oh my God.
The thing about Amir is he came down there like the most selfless act ever because I don't know who was there that night. He played twice, right? Do you remember me going, he's not going to play well here. These guys are too athletic. Like him being in the right spot at the right time means nothing down here. Like none of that matters.
Yeah. We can talk about Norvell Pell in a little bit, but I've been loving his performance so far through 2 games. Rob, what was your main takeaway of the Sixers W versus Memphis?
Well, my main takeaway was we saw things that I think we had wanted to see all year. First of all, I thought the defense was stifling. I thought they were getting a lot of deflections. They were in passing lanes. Even guys that aren't the strongest defensive players seem to be in the right position more times than not. On the offensive side, look, we could talk about how great it was for Ben Simmons to shoot, and absolutely was. What was great about it was there was no thought. He caught the ball. He shot the ball. It was in rhythm. He wasn't second-guessing anything, so I don't know how much this sports psychologist is helping him. It's great, but in general, on the offensive side, I thought the ball movement was terrific. I thought they moved the ball from side to side a lot more. I thought guys were knocking down shots at a great percentage, which we understand with this team if they need to do that because of the way they want to play. And when you get guys like Shake Milton hitting his threes and Furkan getting a couple, and even coming off the bench and Alec Burks, Glenn Robinson, that sort of thing. But overall, I know what JB said, and I agree. You're not going to learn a lot from this, but it was at least something of a positive to see this team kind of enforce their will on another team like they did to Memphis for most of that game.
Any takes, Jer?
Rob just said everything I was going to say. I mean, we shot 56% from 3. That's huge, like phenomenal. I mean, we still had 20 turnovers in a 40-minute game, which is a little sloppy, but I feel like that's expected. We had 34 assists, though, in a 40-minute game, which is phenomenal, I think. I mean, if that's an indication of how we're going to be moving the ball, I'm going to be very excited about this new lineup Brett's throwing out there to start the game.
JB, go.
All right, so the one thing I noticed about the Memphis game early is I'm not sure that they were really that sloppy. I literally asked someone that was involved in the game down there, involved in the bubble thing, why do they bring out brand new basketballs that have that sort of slickness to them? This looked like legitimately guys that have been practicing with basketballs for 3 weeks that just got brand new slick basketballs straight out. Major League Baseball uses that dirt, I think, from Ohio, right? So that you're not dealing with a completely shiny ball. What's going on with the basketballs early in that game? Because a lot of those turnovers were just like Butterfingers type stuff.
You're telling me that Major League Baseball imports dirt from Ohio for every single MLB stadium?
No. They send – yes, that's true. But I think they send the balls to that place first where they get rubbed with the exact clay, whatever it is.
Wait a second. You're telling me that they send baseballs to Ohio to get rubbed in dirt, and then they send that dirt around the country? What?
So if I prove myself correct right now, will you?
I'm not saying I don't.
Will you tear up that Villanova shirt?
Wait.
If I prove that I'm right,
I'm not saying I don't believe you. I just say that's like the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
No, it's not absurd.
I believe it.
The NFL does it with footballs. Before the game, they get like 12 footballs, and they condition the footballs, right? And if you're Tom Brady, you maybe take a little air out of the football, but they definitely condition the texture so it's not that right out of the box. If you ever go to the field house and grab a ball off the rack, they have this like right out of the box sheen, and I don't like it. So to me, the early turnovers just look like straight out of the box, brand new balls. Why don't they step them up just a little bit?
What about you, Austin? Quick takes.
For me, it was everyone talks about Ben Simmons shooting a three. I thought he just looked very healthy, and I think whether he shoots 100 threes in Orlando or he shoots no threes in Orlando, part of the formula for this team's ceiling is going to be Ben Simmons' ability to go out there every night and be healthy. So that was a big takeaway for me. And another one was that I thought Shake Milton didn't try to force anything, came in there, poised, looked calm, and he showed that hey, there might be something here that we can run with this offense, and it isn't just trying to catch lightning in a bottle for a couple weeks. This is something that we can maybe integrate into the future of this team and actually capitalize on inexpensive value for once.
Awesome. Let's move on to the season opener for the Philadelphia Phillies. Last Friday, the Phillies got the L 5-2. Nola's first start.
Wait, hold on. What did we agree you were going to do with that shirt?
I never signed off on anything. I never signed off on nothing. There's no sign anyway.
Where's Doc Landis when you need him to just rip that shirt apart? we did. I don't know if you guys know this, but we did a podcast one time and we had the worst technical issues of all time. And he literally he had a whole spiel where he wanted to talk about the Sixers and rip his shirt off, and he went through it 3 times. And all 3 times we didn't have the feed. We just lost it. We had to trash.
You ripped 3 shirts?
You ripped 3 shirts.
That's what it takes to go from an aspiring journalist to a real journalist.
Oh man, it was absolutely hilarious.
That's what it takes.
So bad for
I
not wearing shirts if necessary.
You can't get that content anywhere else.
Not one take made it onto the channel, or the pod. That's just suck. All right, let's move on to
so we have comments, right?
Yeah, we got Aaron XA with the laughing with the death skull.
So how do I add?
Thanks for joining, Aaron.
How do I add the link proving myself correct about the Major League Baseball?
I saw that.
How do I add that to the comments so that our many viewers can know that shirt on your back should be in the garbage right now?
I never agreed to anything.
All right, let's talk about Aaron Nola, guys. Personally, I liked what I saw. This is when the Phillies lost 5-2 in the opener. I thought his stuff was electric. He just couldn't stay out of the zone. But, man, for me, this game was just a complete mess offensively. The team had 5 hits, 5 fucking hits. 2 of them were one was a check swing. The other one was like an infield single. The Phillies versus the Marlins, man, I just don't get it. It's like death, taxes, and losing to the Miami Marlins. Miami lost 105 games last year. 10 of those wins were versus the Phillies last year. I just don't know why the Phillies cannot figure out the Miami Marlins. So frustrating. Rob, go ahead, dude. What was your take on the Phillies opener?
Well, there were a couple takes. First of all, I hate that 3 games in, we already are looking at the offense doing the same types of things as they've done in the past few years. You look at that, and we'll get to it, that 3rd game of the series where they're just leaving men on base and men on base and men on base. And the offense is the spark plug for this team, right? They're the group that's supposed to be on night in and night out. Obviously, they're going to have an off night here or there. So that's one thing. The other thing goes back to something that I have been screaming about since this past offseason prior to the pandemic. The Phillies organization is one of the most inept organizations in the history of professional sports. And I mean this, and I'm telling you, they cannot get guys to do the right thing. I don't know how you go into this season, you hire Joe Girardi, Bryce Harper's here a year, and you just totally ignore your bullpen. You don't pay one damn bit of attention to that bullpen, so that the first time you go to it, you got a guy going out there who's throwing 13-year-old wild pitches to the backstop, giving up runs. And I know instantly my first thought is, how does Matt Klentak continue to friggin' survive? Listen, they kept bringing guys out of the bullpen, and I say it all the time. I admit it. Not the world's biggest baseball fan. But every name that came out of the bullpen, I'm like, who the hell is this? I don't even know who these friggin' guys are. Like,
that's because none of them have played in Major League Baseball yet.
It went from bad to worse with that bullpen. Look, Nola, he just kind of lost it a little bit there. But before that, he was dealing the first 4.5 innings of that game. I mean, he was really pitching the ball well. So I'm not going to jump off the Nola bandwagon. But that bullpen is the epitome of the ineptitude of that organization right now.
For me, it goes all the way to their farm system. Their inability to stockpile arms is where they're hurting the most. And, Ramon Rosso, that guy was really fun to watch last year. He was kind of the surprise of their farm system last year. Threw really well. He's a really good kid. However, that's not it, man. Their inability to be able to develop arms and develop a system. Spencer Howard, Alec Boehm, all those guys are phenomenal. They're going to be really, really great. But, man, that's just really what's hurt them. What about you, JR? What's your take on that season opener?
I really wasn't that mad. I mean, you guys were really upset about that game. I mean, every single message we got was just a negative. I mean, we did throw out 4 guys from that bullpen that you've never heard of, but we also shouldn't have had Aaron Nola go, 4.2 innings, 5.1 innings, whatever it was. Like, you're the ace. You're the guy who's supposed to be up there with Max Scherzer, with Steven Strasburg, with Garrett Cole. You're supposed to give us 6 to 7 innings at least on opening day, and you come out and you're gassed after 5 innings, not even. Like, that was my head scratcher. The bats will wake up. That's fine. I mean, McCutcheon's 0 for 9 to start the season. He'll be fine. Phil Gosselin was a great, fun story, but that's nothing. I mean, the bullpen you guys are really harping on. The 4 guys that came out, they gave up 4 hits total, and 1 pitcher gave up 3 of them. So 2 pitchers fired scoreless innings, gave up no hits. They did issue a couple walks, but that's expected in the first game of the season, especially with jitters, especially pitching in a ballpark with no fans there. This is very different circumstances. But this was the plan that Klentak rolled out. He said that we're bringing up young arms who throw heat. And every pitcher that came in that game threw over 94. So when you have a bullpen and the first 4 guys that came in who were very young, very unproven, these major leaguers don't know them, and they're throwing gas. I mean, I'm not going to hate on it. They weren't throwing junk. Was their location not where we wanted it to be? Yes. But like I said, it's the first game of the season. Mistakes were made, but I'd be more upset that Nola came out and just kind of laid an egg. I mean, dude, that was terrible first start for Nola. He should be embarrassed right now.
JB, any takes on the Phillies opener, man?
Just on the game, or we?
Just the game. We're gonna just roll through all the
Nola. So I'd like to have a longer conversation about Nola. He looked fine, and then he's the guy that when his movement and his I mean, you guys heard me early in the game go, yeah, you can't throw those pitches right over the middle of the plate, and he was getting. Guys were missing in the first couple innings, but there were a lot of pitches left low and right over the middle of the plate. Like, those are meatballs. They will kill you. I'm not that worried about him. I just like how he pitches. I really do like him as a pitcher, and he's the kind of pitcher I enjoyed watching. I've said that before. I wouldn't worry about one game. But back to the bullpen thing, right? So if your GM is saying we're just going to stockpile guys that throw gas in the bullpen, it's not how you build a bullpen.
The Red Sox won 2 pennants in the early 2000s with that exact model. Middleton was one of the guys who orchestrated that. Like, this plan works. I know recently a lot of teams don't do that because you'll see teams stockpiling big arms in the bullpen. Maybe some teams get starters that are worn out. They bring them to being long relief guys. But this is a theory that's worked across time. I mean, especially when you guys got like Wheeler and Arrieta and Nola, who are supposed to go 6 or 7 innings. Like,
It's a great theory for October baseball, November baseball.
This is October. This is a 60-game season.
No. It's a very specific thing. October in Boston, in the postseason, you want fireball throwers. In July, you need to move a batter's eye level. You need to mix up speeds, just like you'd want to do in any single bat. Your bullpen needs to be constructed so that their lineup, as they run through 4 or 5 at bats, they don't get too comfortable with any single style of pitch. If all your guys are heat change-up guys, okay, they're going to get used to that.
But that's your 6, 7, 8. That's not our closer. Our closer can do that with his cutter and a slider, which is phenomenal. We also lost a couple guys earlier this season on the DL, which hurt our bullpen.
Look, I don't agree with the philosophy. We can say that it works in Boston when it's 38 degrees in October.
But they did it for they just didn't start that in October. Like they did that for full seasons.
Boston, hope is not a strategy. Boston is a unique case.
The Royals won a World Series with a no-name bullpen and then flipped all those relievers and got draft picks and bats for the next season.
All right. My point is, I don't agree with the philosophy. Philosophically, I don't agree with it.
What would you like to build a bullpen when you already have invested X amount of dollars in your starting pitching, your 3, 4, and 5 hitters, and you got to re-sign JT? So what do you want to put all this money at? Somebody's got to take a hit.
We're going to get into that conversation, right?
I'm sure.
You just want to get into
talk about McClintock in a little bit.
Where do we put the money?
Let me get my popcorn before we start.
Go ahead, Austin. What was your take on the opener?
My take was that essentially these everyday Phillies fans, you see that we're so jovial about getting Joe Girardi. They really don't know what's going on in the game, because if Kapler had made those decisions last season, he would have gotten skinned the entire opening week, reflecting on that opening series. Sports radio would have murdered him. The fans, Butch and Manioc, would have murdered him for sure. All those jabronis who call in the sports radio, I used to be one of them, but they all killed Kapler. Girardi made some really bad decisions too. Same things that Kapler did in the past. He put in a rookie reliever for his first appearance in a high leverage situation. You don't do that. You put him in when you're up 4 runs or you're down 4 runs, and the difference isn't going to be one pitch that the guy can make. So I thought that Joe Girardi made some boneheaded decisions. He doesn't have a lot to work with there, though. Same thing happened with Kapler. What it comes down to is that your GM, your owner, and your president are incredibly incompetent. And John Middleton has gotten a pass a lot because he delivered on his promise of getting Bryce Harper. As we've seen, though, and as much as I do love Bryce Harper, he's been a hell of a guy to watch. I mean, he's been a really good sport in this city. He's been a phenomenal them, and he's worked hard. He's delivered. You don't win championships in baseball by out-hitting your opponent. You do it by out-pitching them. And they don't have any kind of arms. They just don't have arms. There's no one on this pitching staff outside of Nolo, Wheeler, Neris, and that might be it that you can trust. And that does not bode well for this team. And that's why I said yesterday on my own podcast that I don't believe that they're going to win more than 25 games.
I mean, when you look at the Phillies, like we talked about this, JR, like my take was there's only 60 games. How many times is Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler going to step on that mound? Is it a must-win every time Nola takes the ball? And I definitely lean towards you got to win. When you look at Vince Velasquez, Zach Eflin, all these guys, all these bums that are in that 3 through 5 in that Phillies starting rotation, it is a major, major problem. And you look at the bullpen, it is nearly a must-win situation. That's my take. What about you, Rob?
Look, we can say, well, it worked for this team, it worked for that team, but this goes back to, Chris, what you said at the very beginning. They have farm systems that are decent. Okay, the Phillies have not. And it's consistently bad from the upper management of this team. You look, whether it was your plan to go in with these no-name guys or not, that's a bad plan to have no veteran leadership in your bullpen. That's number one. Number two, for what seems like 32nd consecutive year, you told me to believe in you with Vinny Velasquez. Screw you and screw that. I'm done. I'm not listening. How many chances are we going to give these damn guys before we move the hell on? Like, Matt, look, I understand that analytics plays a role in baseball. I get that analytics plays a role. But these guys that just seem like they're straight number guys and don't look at what is actually taking place in the field, I got no time for it. I got no time for it as a fan of this team that I want to be all in on baseball. But Jesus, like 3 games in, and I'll be the first one to tell you I'm overreacting. But at the same time, I mean, come on.
All right, we have Aaron saying, let me go get my popcorn. We have Joey D coming over. He says, Deibs, you sure you don't want to lace him up again and come out with the bullpen? Man, I swear to you, I spent the entire day yesterday at the pool throwing my 11th-month-old in the air for like 6 fucking hours, and my arm hurts, man. I'm hurting really bad.
Baseballs. It can work.
We also have Jordan. Good afternoon, fellas. Phillies had a rough opening series. That Arrieta contract is definitely going to be a nightmare. Thanks for joining, Jordan. Fully agree. So, JR, any take on what Rob just said regarding the Phillies and the roster construction there?
I mean, I just don't get it. We went into the season before the season started. We gave Ranger Suarez a new contract. We re-upped Sir Anthony Dominguez, and then they got hurt. That's your 7th and 8th inning guy. Like, we wouldn't have these youngsters if they didn't get hurt 4 months ago. Like, these are things you can't predict.
How many years are we going to do this for Sir Anthony Dominguez? I feel like the guy's just consistently getting hurt now. So, once again, you're putting resources into a guy you can't trust. And that's what they consistently do. Meanwhile, JT Realmuto's sitting out there, and they're making up every damn excuse why they haven't given this guy the money. And it just – I don't know if there's even a plan. Like, I feel like that every day they wake up and go, what are we going to do today? Obviously, they're not, but that's what
so, I cannot wait to dive into this. And JT he's the whole thing here, right? Because the idea that they won't extend him and they're playing hardball with your catcher, and that they have basically a very predictable pitching staff. Your catcher calls the game. And let's go back to the coaching thing, right? Girardi's fine. He's fine. Like, what's to complain about with a guy like that? He's proven to be a good manager of people. Gabe Kapler is my thing with Gabe Kapler the whole time. When I watch this, I say, here's a guy who plays poker and learned all the math of poker. But this is a guy that doesn't get that is the first level of becoming a competent poker player. And you can beat other poker players who don't know the math just by playing the math. But when you get to the World Series of Poker, everyone knows the math. And if they think you're just playing the math, they already know how to beat you. They already know how to beat you because they have the same numbers you do. So if the analytics say this, they can predict exactly what you're going to do in a game, and they can prepare their guys for it. Because baseball, every at-bat is a hand of poker. Every at-bat is a hand of poker. And what you need are cards. And your cards are your pitchers.
Was they counted cards, the Astros?
Okay. Yeah, they do count the cards, right? But if you're not cheating, you're not trying. All right? So
get back to what is this Phillies management front office? What have they done that you guys don't like so much?
Hold on, let me I'll get there, I promise. And Rob started this. But the idea No, he started the conversation, which I think is the right conversation. But the idea that you're not going to invest in a catcher whose job is to call the poker hands, his job is to work with your pitcher, to set up the hitter, to move his eyes, move his weight, not let him get too comfortable. Anybody who's played baseball, if you know that you're getting a fastball and you know it's going to be on the inside half of the plate, your job is done. Now it just becomes, did you hit it to a fielder or not? That's the whole, like,
JB, there's a pandemic. We're playing 60 games this year. Like, it's okay that we're not resigning JT right now. Just because one team out of 32 signed a superstar.
No.
No other teams made these big signings.
It's indicative of a complete lack of understanding of how to build a foundation and an organization.
They don't know how much money they're going to bring in this year. They have no idea. This is unprecedented. They have no idea how much capital they're bringing in.
And they can't afford to own a major league franchise.
Why?
Because they spend money.
James Segura, Andrew McCutchen, Didi Gregorius, Reese Hoskins, Bryce Harper. What?
Yeah, but
they spent the money in all the wrong places. They spent the money on the shiny toys, and they don't spend the money in Latin America. They don't spend the money in the scouting department. They don't spend the money.
We have the number 3 ranked farm system in the league. Number 3.
I don't want to get back and forth on this topic. Let me just finish my point. When you are guessing at Mickey Moniak, you probably didn't know shit about Mickey Moniak until he turned 16 years old. The Dodgers know about the kids when they're 7, 8 years old. The Yankees know about kids when they're 8 years old, down in Latin America. Okay, they know about Yasiel Puig. They brought that guy up. He became a sensation, and as soon as they realized he was crazy, they extracted tremendous value for low investments. They don't go out and sign a right fielder. Nothing against a very good player, Bryce Harper. But a right fielder is a luxury over the top, put you over the top move when you have a 92-win team that gets you to be a 100-win team. It doesn't do shit for an 80-win team. Doesn't do shit. And the proof is last season, because they went from an 80-win team to an 81-win team. They're a 500 ball club with no real plan, and they're spending. If they don't have enough money to ball the fuck out like the Yankees and just overspend their way into this, then they have to be smart. Like I said yesterday, you can't be dumb and cheap. You can be smart and cheap like the Oakland A's and Billy Beane. And you can be dumb and rich as fuck.
JB, I love you, and I listen to all your basketball information, but you are just like an old man on a porch talking about a strategy from the 70s. Every example that you just gave was wrong.
Crazy. You build a foundation, and then you zoom all the way into the poker match that is an at bat. This is the game of baseball. You don't treat it like hockey. You don't treat it like the NBA. It's not the NBA. You can't just throw money at something and say people know. It's no offense, but this is not the which theoretical 5 starting pitchers will win a Twitter pool, a Twitter bracket. That's not how this works. That's not how this works. It's never been how it works. You can think it's how it works if you have a team that will just outspend and brute force their way into high-level competition, sure. But if you're showing that you're not willing to do that, then you can't spend $25 on a right fielder. You just can't, no matter how good he is. It's not an indictment of him as a person or a player, or you can make all the arguments that he's going to put butts in the seats, but butts stop going in the seats when it's 90 degrees out and the team is 500. They stop showing up, and it doesn't matter how many Philly fanatic cleats you wear, they stop showing up, and the money, you got to be good for it to matter. It doesn't matter. I used the analogy yesterday. This is Washington Redskins. This is bullshit thinking. Okay, the Redskins did this shit every year in February, March. They overspent on.
I got to hear some other people's opinions. All right, Rob and Austin, tell me what you think. I just can't hear JB go on a tangent for 20 minutes about nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, let's move forward.
Joe, did you play baseball? It just. Did you play baseball, JR?
At all, but D3.
All right, let's move on to.
How do you not know these basic fundamentals? How do you not know this?
I know that my front office gave me an all-star short, an all-star second, the number 3 prospect in MLB.com, and Bohm coming up to play third. We have Hoskins, who's one of the top on-base guys in the last 3 years of the league. We have a face of the franchise in right field.
You are
the best all-around leader this city has ever had since Malcolm Jenkins in center field. Left field is kind of hit or miss.
You're a fantasy baseball player. You play fantasy too much. Stop playing fantasy. Play the sport. The sport is not fantasy baseball.
I don't know even what you're saying.
All right, Austin.
Then you don't know the sport of baseball.
Moving on, cutting you off, Jason. Any take on that, Austin? Before we move on to Zach Wheeler's debut.
Good luck, Austin.
Follow Allen. Have fun. What
a riveting. Well, I don't know how to follow up with that. I would say that, I think if it would be one thing if they said, like, okay, we're going to bring in all these veteran pitchers, and and then everyone got injured, and then this is what they were left with no young guy. It was all young guys. But I do agree with Jason. If they came in from the start, and they said they were going to go with youth in the bullpen spot. If you're going to go with youth and you're going to lean into youth, you need to have an experienced catcher behind the plate, walking them through every pitch. And right now, they've devalued the catcher position because he's still a free agent after the season. And I mean, the proof's in the pudding. The Nationals lost Bryce Harper, the superstar player. They won the World Series. They hadn't gotten out of the divisional round in the previous couple of years. They won the series after they lose Bryce Harper. Right. While I'm not blaming him for them not winning the World Series. What I will say is he's exactly the kind of guy you can lose and still be good.
Go ahead, Rob.
The only thing that I would say to it is you go look. The minute that they signed Bryce Harper, the minute they gave him that contract, you put yourself into a different realm of baseball. You now can't use the excuse, well, I don't know what we're going to have financially here, there. No. It doesn't work. John Middleton is a freaking billionaire. Okay, so look, there's certain sports with that hard cap. Baseball's not one of them. The minute you bought Bryce Harper, which is what you did, you bought him. And that's fine. I'm on board with it. That's what I wanted. I love Bryce Harper. But the minute you did that, you now owe it to your organization and to the fans of your organization to continue that. You can't just do that once and then say, okay, we don't need to really make sure that we keep the core guys together because Bryce is here, and really that's all that matters. That's a bad message to send to your fans.
JR, go ahead. I didn't want to say something.
They're going to re-sign JT. Like one team out of 32 made a big signing. And everyone's like, well, we have to be the next team to sign the guy we need. No, like, relax. We don't even know our financials yet. We don't even know if our players are healthy after the last series.
But see what I'm saying, the financials shouldn't – this is a guy who is going to do everything for you. At some point, you got to show respect to some of these guys like a JT Realmuto. And you don't try and hardball them. Give them the money and just move on.
All right, let's move on to Zach Wheeler's debut. This was Saturday. The Phillies got the W 7-1. I think Zach Wheeler absolutely dazzled. 7 innings of 1-run ball. Just this guy stepped out. I think $118 million. I think all eyes were on this guy. You had to pick up the Phillies, and he really delivered for me. But honestly, for me, the story of the day went to Phil Gosselin. I thought this guy was just. I know he's been in the league for 11 years or something like that, but this guy was absolutely dynamite. He had 2 home runs. One broke the tie in the 6th inning. Rob, what was your take on Wheeler's debut and the Phillies' first win of the season?
Well, Wheeler's debut was a huge positive because, Wheeler was a bit of a question mark. Even with the money, he came off Tommy John surgery, but he was throwing heat. He was hitting his spots. He was doing what he was supposed to do. He got himself out of a couple jams there. And the other thing that happened this game, although it didn't happen early, but later, was they started to get these runs home. They started to hit these home runs. JT Realmuto with a 3-run bomb, and that sort of thing. And then obviously Phil Gosselin. And Bryce gave the little sign the check move crossing home plate, which is, by the way, another reason why you need to sign him. You spent $1 million in that man, keep him happy. But all in all, it was good. But there were still men left on base again early in that game, and the offense is going to be your bread and butter because of the way you build it. Which we said may not be the best way to build a team, but I will say overall Saturday's game made me happy. Zach Wheeler pitched well. And I put $40 on him and won 45, so I was really excited at the end of that.
There it is. All right. How about you, JR?
Good. Wheeler was good. He was a solid B performance. It wasn't an A. He got the innings he needed to get to kind of save the bullpen since they were kind of straggling the day before, but he still let up 7 base runners. I mean, against Marlins team, like that's got to come down a little bit. Now, he was able to limit the damage, which was great, but if you want that to be an A performance, what we kind of want to see out of him, then cut down on the base runners. The walks weren't that bad. He only had 2 walks, so his control was pretty dazzling all night. But I don't want to see those slap singles which he was giving up. But it was a solid performance by Wheeler. B+.
Jason has lost 350 followers since the show has begun. That's awesome. What about you, Jason? Did you check out Zach Wheeler?
Nothing new there. This is every time I speak a Phillies opinion, boom, hundreds of followers in the trash can. And you know what? Those aren't the followers I want.
We got a chance to check out
an aspiring media outlet didn't say.
I don't care. Don't care. Those are not the ones I want. Goodbye.
Any take on Jason? Did you get a chance to check out Zach Wheeler, man?
Yeah, so I like innings eaters after a guy, and especially in a 60. One of the things that Kapler might benefit from in a 60-game season is like just the sheer amount of pitches every at bat. Like a guy that can throw 130 pitches for you is really valuable because it allows you to get cute in other games without completely burning down your 11-man stat. So innings eaters are good. It's good. It's fine.
Austin.
Yeah, I was encouraged by Zach Wheeler. Anytime you can beat the Marlins, you should beat the Marlins. So obviously, he was a superstar. Obviously, things from him that I would like to see that would sort of elevate him from that like ace B to ace A would be just consistently locating that fastball and keeping hitting his targets. Because he has swing and miss stuff, but he wasn't generating a lot of swing and misses yesterday or 2 days ago. Yeah. So it was a solid debut. I'd like to see him do it against a good team.
All right, lost him, guys. Did you lose him too?
No, I didn't. But I do have a question for Austin.
Oh, shit.
Is it true that you have burners with more followers than some of your critics? Because that's what I heard. Some of your most vocal critics have less followers than burner accounts that you have.
All right, moving forward.
It's just what I'm hearing.
I need a lawyer.
Let's move on to the Sixers' second scrimmage game versus OKC. 102-97 loss. How can you not gush about Ben Simmons and his overall performance? Nearly a triple-double, 14 points, 11 boards, 9 assists. He did have 5 turnovers, but who the hell cares? Like, that guy was dominant on defense. Again, showed zero sign of injury. Again, dude is absolutely back. I was just thoroughly impressed. Right? What was your take on the second scrimmage game for the Sixers?
Well, look, the one, Austin said, sorry, you just said it. Watching Ben Simmons healthy, the jump shot is just an added bonus to everything else that he does on a basketball floor. The one thing I took out of this game was no Joel Embiid, but they seem to still have a good handle on this game through most of it. And Al Horford found his 3-point shooting stroke in this one. I mean, he hit 4 in a row. And once again, they all seem to have a little more pep in their step. And I mean, I guess everybody does to a certain extent, but I'm focusing in on this team who looked dead in the water back in March before the pandemic hit. It's like I said, it's exciting. We don't know what to expect. I'm going to just put a warning out to the fans who lost their mind after they lost the game with the third string in there. The 8 games leading up to the playoffs, understand you're going to see a lot of different groupings go out there because they're really just trying to figure out what's going to work in the playoffs. So please don't be that analyzing of every single play and throw Brett Brown out of the bubble, whatever the hell else you're going to say for those 8 games. Please just let it play out for the love of God and my sanity, because I will have to get on there and go back on my Brett Brown hill and die on it if I have to.
Listen, all we need is the passport to what you remember. And apparently Brett Brown says they have that. Whatever the fuck that means.
I can't defend that one.
JR, any quick takes on the Sixers' second scrimmage game, dude?
No, we're just getting a flow right now. You're just getting guys comfortable with each other. It was fun to watch. I'm glad basketball's back.
All right, I'm going to throw this to JB, and I kind of want your thoughts on Al Horford, man, because this is the first time he showed some life. Is it fool's gold, or is it do you just take that game and just throw it out the window? Like, what's your take on what you saw? Because he was one of the most impressive players from that game. What was your take?
And try to get this in before 10 o'clock. That'd be nice.
Tomorrow's game starts at 8:30. So here's why I think fans, like anybody that cares what the final score was in that game, allow me to retort. They removed Norvell Pell from the game with like 6.5 minutes left to make sure Norvell Pell didn't get hurt because he's doing a great job. So down the stretch, they put Kyle O'Quinn in the game, and they gave the ball to Alec Burks, and they made sure that Shake was safe, and Norvell was safe, and GR3 was safe. All your top 8-9 rotation guys, they got them the fuck off the floor. So who cares what happened in the last 6 minutes? Honestly, who cares? There's nothing to be learned other than did Matisse jump a few passes? That would be great. But otherwise, there's virtually nothing to be learned in the last half of that quarter. But if you see them protecting Norvell Pell, that tells you that they are. Forget the 3-pointer. That was a joke, right?
What?
People know I'm joking. I'm either really serious or it's definitely a joke. And they probably sound completely the opposite. The fact that they didn't want him playing means they must really like what they're seeing from him in practices. So that's really good. I think Al operates really well in his comfort zone, which is at center. I think he operates really well when he sort of understands his role in the offense versus being a catch-and-shoot guy. I think at 33, he probably thought he could transform his game to the new role, and he struggled with that early. It's really good to see him hit those threes, especially from the spot he hit them from, because those are the spots they need him to take them, and those aren't really his spots. If you go through his career shot chart, those are not the spots he ever had to take threes from when he was in Atlanta or Boston. So they've asked him to take threes from very different places to catch and shoot. In the game one, it looked like he was surprised again when he'd get the ball on those above the break threes. Like, oh no, me? What? And he'd throw them up. Game two, he looked much more comfortable and he knocked those down. If he knocks those down, this team becomes really, really, really problematic for anyone that would face them in the postseason.
Quick takes, Austin. Go ahead.
So for me, I like this continued development from Thibault. I think he's sort of experimenting with some new things there. His handle is a little bit I wouldn't say it's quite developed. He has this thing where he's doing this, like, he'll attack the one way and then he'll pull back really hard behind his back on a crossover. and now he seems to be having like a transition problem where the ball is missing the other hand, so it's a loose ball, and he has to go dive for it and save it, which is kind of hilarious to think about. But I do like that he's not afraid of trying something new in game and experimenting. I think that's a big sign of what a player that can grow. So I was hoping that was good yesterday. I thought Al Horford's defense on Adams early on really inspired him and invigorated him because he missed the air balls the first three, had those two plays where he ties up Adams and then forces a timeout. Next play, and then he hits 3 or 4 threes in a row. I want to be careful with this, but I venture to say that I think a lot of the social justice issues has sort of bonded the team closer because it's given them a common cause that they've all found like the ground. Like, hey, we're here to, we're in this together. At the end of the day, this is what's most important. And they've kind of found that thing that they all have in common. That's fighting for what's going on in our society right now. So I think that sort of helped grow their chemistry to some extent.
All right, let's move on to the last game of the weekend, and that is freaking Vince Velasquez, the Phillies versus the Marlins. The Phillies lost the game 11-6, took the L, the first series loss of the season, of course. I mean, for this one, I go straight back to like a week or two ago when everyone was just on the Vince Velasquez train, and I'm texting Rob, I'm texting Jerry, I'm like, am I taking crazy pills? Like, have you not seen the previous seasons? Like, this guy is Mr. Inconsistent, just a guy that you just, shows flashes, and then you just want to run your head through a goddamn wall. That's Vince Velasquez. So, I mean, what can you say? The Phillies took the lead after that Bryce Harper bomb, 4-0 lead. And then sure enough, Vince Velasquez had to stand strong on that mound and settle the troops. And sure enough, gave up 4 runs. I keep, going back to the local media, like hyping this guy up. And like, does anybody have any kind of sanity in this town? Rob?
Jack Fritz!
Harsh.
Listen, I'm gonna make my points real quick. I don't like Vince Velasquez. Stop telling me to like Vince Velasquez. Stop telling me to believe in Vince Velasquez. I'm done with it. A guy that's struggling from a confidence issue gets a 4-run lead in the first inning. A 4-run lead. And just totally falls flat on his face. Nope, I'm sorry. I'm done. Give me Spencer Howard. I'm out. Goodbye. I know we're going to see him again, but I don't want to see him anymore. I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
Fire Matt Clentat.
JR versus Jason, round 2. Ding, ding.
I feel like we're back on Party on Broad where I got to defend the Eagles all the time versus you two. Now I'm just defending the Phillies all the time. Like, VV is what he is. Now, VV had an opportunity to step up and really secure the role as a number 3 starter. That's why they put him ahead of Arrieta. Girardi wanted to see what he had, and he let him down. I mean, that's who's not to say that he's not going to go out next week versus the Yankees and throw 6 innings with 1-run ball. It's way too early to tell. I mean, VV's got the velocity. He always has. That's why we traded for him for Ken Giles when we did that deal. I mean, just give it time. That was definitely not a good outing by any means. I mean, 3 innings. You need to at least go 5, buddy, especially if you want to be a number 3 starter. But we'll see. It's one game. All
right, man. In a season when you play nothing but NL East and AL East squads, man, you got to find these wins against the Marlins, man. I'm sorry. What about you, JB? Did you watch the game?
I did watch the game, and I just – there's good wild, and then there's just like a garbage player that you can't count on that turns you into a for sure mediocre team. And when you trot those guys out, wait, I missed that one. I mean, you're looking at a 500 team. What's the big deal? Why? What is there to argue about? It's clearly a 500 team.
How?
I mean, they certainly have a lot of questions there.
How based on the last 2 seasons?
I don't give a shit about questions for the other teams. I care about the teams that are in our division. Have you seen the Mets roster? They're depleted. Mm-hmm. Have you seen this Marlins team? They're not going to win a stretch run. The Nats caught it lightning in a bottle last year. Credit for that. That's awesome.
How does the Marlins being bad turn the Phillies into not a 500 team?
Because we're going to beat the shit up on the Marlins and the Mets coming up. We have 7 more games against the Marlins. We got 10 against the Mets.
Based on what evidence that they're going to beat the shit out of the Marlins?
Based on the guys that we have on our squad who are all-stars in their career. You think Andrew McCutchen's going to go 0 for 9 next series? Do you think Gene Score's going to go 2 for 11 the next series? Bryce Harper, as bad as you guys said he was, he still has an OPS over 1,100. Reese Hoskins,
no one said he was bad. Literally no one criticized him.
No,
this team's going to be absolutely fun, especially with Girardi on the hill. We're going to be 3 games in 4 days where we want to just burn it down and say this management doesn't know what they're doing.
Well, no, I'm not looking at
that for years.
I was going to say,
they don't know what they're doing.
I'm looking at
don't.
years under Matt Klentak. I'm looking at an organization who said, "Oh, we signed Bryce Harper. Now we can, screw the arms." It made no sense to me. I understand they gave Zach Wheeler a contract, but for the 3rd consecutive year, you told me as an organization, trust in Vince Velasquez, trust in Zach Eflin, trust in all these guys. You continue to tell me to trust in, and they ain't done shit. They ain't
All right, so question. Did you want them to go – a big name they were maybe interested in was John Paxton, the pitcher for the Yankees. He was a guy right around Wheeler said we were going to bring him into. He could be number 2, number 3. He went 1 inning yesterday and got blown up. Like, it happens. Like,
But the track record for Vinny Velasquez is this. It's not like I'm just going off of one start with this guy.
1.4.
I don't think Vinny's going to be a 1 or 2. I think Vinny can be a sustainable number 4.
He's bad.
What about you, Austin?
Listen, when you start talking about the moves you made this offseason, you've already lost. Because that is just not how this sport works.
What?
I disagree with that 100%.
Yeah, what?
No, you have to build an organization that from the ground up is feeding towards the big moves. They have jack shit and are trying to turn chicken shit into a chicken sandwich, and you're fucking falling for it.
Who's jack shit on this team?
They have nothing but shiny toys.
What would it be more specific? Like, that's not Baseball Writers of America talk right there. Be more specific.
Jason's saying a farm system that can, build you into
our farm system's number 3 on MLB.com. Number 3.
It's not number 3. It's not number 3.
Bullshit.
That's not number 3.
I can't believe that. I don't
believe that for a second. It is depleted. After Spencer and Bohm, that farm system is weak, dude. Any take on the Vince Velasquez game, Austin?
I mean, it's
right now.
It's preposterous. Vince Velasquez is an abhorrent pitcher. He throws heat, so he can work out of the bullpen, sure. But how many times have we seen him? He had a 7-0 lead last year to the same team and lost 19-11. There's no evidence that any of these guys are good enough to beat the teams, and it doesn't matter if the other teams are beat up. Other teams are ahead of them anyway. So by default, just by those teams getting hurt or having COVID or whatever, they're going to fall down to slightly above the Phillies or at the Phillies level. The Phillies have no advantage at all. They don't have any kind of pitching depth at all. And the reason that we're frustrated with management is because they've tried to sell the same shit each of the past 3 years, and they haven't gotten any better. They had the one run. They were 15 games above 500. You're like, oh my god, this is amazing. They really had it figured out. That team imploded into shit by August because they relied too much on a couple of guys who couldn't keep up the pace. They have no depth in the pitching spots. So that's why we say there's no evidence they can beat the Marlins, because they can't. They've shown that they can't beat the Marlins. It's not even a debate. They are so lucky. They're so lucky that this series, the Yankee series, is delayed, because it gives the other guys in rotation another day of rest, and maybe, just maybe, they have a chance to win 1 or 2 games in that series and not get blown off the field by a team that is unbelievably superior to them. That team goes out and they get pitchers. They understand how to build a team. They have depth. The reason the Phillies don't have anything to show for any of the last 8 years of shit is because of the fact that they don't draft well, they don't have depth, and they have nothing to give up in assets to other organizations. They cashed in on Jorge Alfaro and 2 pitchers to get Real Muto, who now they have to re-sign, or else they basically gave him up for nothing. So
they actually don't know who's good, and that's the real problem. They don't know a mediocre player from a good player. They don't know enough. And when they sell it to local media, they convince you that Vince Velasquez is a viable guy in your rotation to be your 3rd starter. They've sold you a bill of goods because they don't even know a mediocre player from a bad player or a good player from a mediocre player, and they're going to spend in all the wrong places. They're going to spend energy, time. They're going to invest resources, not just money, but time and energy in all the wrong places, so that they're going to convince you there's a chance. They're going to convince you they're closer than they are, and there's no evidence that they are.
Last take.
The Yankees went out and brought in J.A. Happ and John Paxton.
And he's still living off of that.
That's fair, but that's fine. But we're not expecting Vince Velasquez to be Zach Wheeler. He doesn't need to be. Just like the Yankees when they brought in J.A. Happ. If we would have brought Happ back, you guys would have been like, this bum, we're bringing this asshole back to town now.
I wanted Happ.
Great picture. Velasquez is not even a rotation.
It's not a fantasy team.
Velasquez anymore.
It's not a fantasy team. You can't play a real team in a 4-game series and just throw out fantasy pitchers. You can't do that because those lineups are going to understand what you're doing. And why do
you keep saying a fantasy? What are you talking about? I'm talking J. Happ sucks, and his velocity peaked at 91 in his last game.
Plenty of guys can suck out of context, but fit in context and make sense in a roster. So I don't know enough to know the Yankees roster and how it's constructed and how one thing feeds into another or doesn't. I don't know enough. But what I do, my observation is for the last 2 seasons, the reason this team fell off a cliff in the middle of June after being really good early is other teams are smart too, and they figure out you only have so many tricks, and they figure out your math, and they play it against you. Now, again, back to the point is I don't think guys got tired. I think guys got figured out, and they're not good enough to be the ones figuring other teams out and overcoming that with raw talent. They're not good enough.
Cycled of what you just said.
Just a collection of
minutes
guys.
ago in the chat about Gabe Kapler and counting cards, and then people can count cards and they understand it. Like, stop with the whole people are figuring it out. This is baseball. It's 11 dudes on the field, and they got to play. And you have one of the best right fielders in the game who not only produces on the field, but brings everyone in that clubhouse up. Like, you may think he's not worth his contract, just money and dollar-wise, but
No.
he does a hell of a lot more with that team.
I don't question whether he's worth that money. I don't care what you pay
Final thoughts,
Bryce
JB.
Harper. I care when you pay a Bryce Harper, and you don't do it when you're a bag of shit. You don't add a guy and commit to a guy with an injury history. This is no critique of him. That is the guy that takes you over the top. That is not the guy that takes you from the middle to the top.
Final take, JR.
No right fielder ever has done that.
Final take, JR. Last comment. Go ahead.
Phillies are going to win the NL East. And then when they do, we're going to reference this podcast of the 4 negative Nancys. And I'm going to say, well, what do I know?
Good job with your division win. Big fucking deal. Who cares?
Yeah, we haven't done it in 8 years. Yeah.
Who cares? Who cares who wins the Atlantic Division in the NBA? Who gives a shit? Which round of the playoffs will you get to?
The Nationals were a wild card team, and they won the World Series. It's not about winning division. It's about winning. It's about the ultimate prize. Like Billy Bean said, it's about winning the last game of the season. That's what it's about.
All right, let's wrap it up. Make sure you follow my man Rob on Twitter. He is at Philly_Madness. Do you want to plug anything, dude?
All I'm going to do is say I turned 36 tomorrow. This podcast was
Happy birthday.
present. I could ever have asked for. This was a lot of fun tonight, though.
I want Howard Eskin next episode.
All right. Make sure you also check out my man JR. He is at John Russell 215. Do you want to plug anything, dude?
No, I'm exhausted and sweating.
Next up, we have JB. Follow him on Twitter at JBlevinsNBA. Your turn, dude. Floor's yours.
I only came here to drop these takes on that shitty ass 2-bit amateur hour organization that can't even figure out who they're credentialing to shoot, which photographers get credentials to shoot games and which don't. Because
as you can tell, we're not biased at all on this podcast.
no, there's a point where there's no bias. It's like, oh, okay, you're not professional, and I don't owe you the benefit of the doubt at all. So you don't get the benefit of the doubt. I don't care if the Phillies are good or bad. I like the game of baseball. I call it like I see it. I don't care. I don't care if they're good or bad. If they're good, I'm going to say they're good. If they're bad, I'm going to say they're bad. And if they're dumb and cheap, I'm going to say they're dumb and cheap. And you can't be both dumb and cheap. Thank you, Chris. It's the only reason I
Right,
can.
Austin.
I could have done this for another hour. So this is I'll be finishing up an article on Robert Covington tonight for Vince Quinn and the Spark. So be sure to check that out. It'll be out hopefully later tonight. And then back to the Sixers the rest of the week. I'm now Kyle Neubeck doesn't know it, but I'm now competing with him internally on trying to beat him to the instant observations article after every game. So I'll be on that. And then
He knows it now because we're only 72 minutes in, and I'm sure he's stuck around to hear that.
he's doing his excellent thing. You know,
No, he's about to hit publish on his takes. 5 takeaways from this podcast. He's about to hit publish right now.
Other than that, Brock and I are going to be going live for the opener against Indiana, hopefully, and then for the last preseason game, or the last not summer league scrimmage game. So be on the look out for that. We never stop working over here at this aspiring outlet.
Hold on now, Austin. I think you actually have to cover for me on opening night. So plan your podcast around that.
Aspiring media outlet. What can
You have to do post game and pregame because I'm out of town.
All right, so make sure you lock it down to thepainted.com for Rob, for JR, for Austin, for JB, for myself. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay off.
Love you guys.